Hey guys, I'm Kevin,
I'm Jake.
and this is Movie Matters. We got our guest here, Daniel. He is no stranger to this podcast. He was on our Once Upon a Time in America episode. Daniel lives in Arizona. He is one of my good friends, and he actually somewhat recommended this movie that we're reviewing today, Come and See, from 1985. Excellent film. Jake and I had never seen it. Don't mean to speak for you, Jake, but Daniel, you have seen it, and I've seen different posts on movie websites about this movie being amazing and that I need to watch it. So it's been on my list for a little bit. But Daniel randomly was like, "Hey, I got a movie recommendation for you," and brought the Criterion Blu-ray over to me and was like, "I got a gift for you." And then I was like, "All right, well, let's watch it together." And it's perfect because it's War Movie Month for Memorial Day coming up here in May. So, yeah, this movie is I really enjoyed it. It's depressing as all hell. Let's start with you, Jake. I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, anybody that follows along and watches in anticipation of the episode coming out, one, we're sorry, and two, you're welcome, because this is, I think, one of the bleakest movies I've ever watched, but also up there is like one of the best made films I've ever seen. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I will never watch it again, but it was very, very good.
Yeah, you had texted me and you're like, 2.5 hours and subtitles, fuck my life. I was like,
which I'm thankful that there actually isn't much dialogue in the movie, which is the same thing with Ron. When we watched that well over a year ago.
Crazy.
It's very much a movie about expression and conveying things through imagery. So yeah, it's pretty easy to follow along, and you're not just reading a book the whole time.
Yeah, definitely. Daniel, what'd you think? I know you've seen this movie before, and so Daniel and I watched it together, obviously for this episode, and that's why I invited him on. So let me know your thoughts, Daniel. What'd you think?
I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I really liked it because it's. I think I said this on Sunday, Kevin, when we saw it, but
yeah,
honestly, I don't think that there's another war movie that I would say that really is actually anti-war and really is as horrific as you can imagine war being. This movie perfectly captures it. It is fucking awful in that sense. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. On one hand, I really like it because of how good it is at portraying that idea that war is bad, anti-war, this and that. However, to your point, Jake, yeah, I definitely feel that when you said that, I don't ever want to watch this again. Because I think I saw this, a year or two ago or something like that, and I felt the exact same way. I first saw, a video essay on this. Someone, was like, come and see, it's, the best horror movie that's, ever been made. And I was like, horror movie? This kind of seems more like horror, but, let's just watch the video. I watched it, and based on the analysis, I was like, holy shit, this is something I definitely got to watch. So got on Blu-ray off Amazon, watched it myself for the first time, and then I was like, okay, this is pretty horrific. I showed it to one of my other friends, Trevor, and I was like, hey, this is the best horror movie that you've probably never seen and that you probably never heard of and whatnot. But he watched it, and he was also like, wow, this is pretty pretty awful in terms of how violent and how just nightmarish it is. Yeah.
So you've seen it 3 times, Daniel?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's every time you're like, I don't want to watch it again, but it's a good movie to show people, I feel like. So I understand why from a cinematic aspect, and like you said, how how it portrays its message across to the viewers is very knocks you on your head. for sure.
Yeah, like
definitely.
the movie's really interesting. You know, like I do like your point that this is probably the most anti-war war movie, at least that I know of. I mean, we talked about Full Metal Jacket, which is pretty anti-war, but there's still quite a bit of like borderline glorification of
Get some!
the fighting and you know stuff. Or like, what's interesting about Come and See is it's almost war adjacent. Like, whereas like there isn't much direct like. Well, there actually isn't any like troop on troop combat at all in the movie, and most of the time, Flora's not anywhere near the front line, you know, of the war. So it's a very unique perspective, I think, on war, and I think one that's it fills a very important gap, I think, in war cinema.
Definitely. It kind of like, I feel like this is a good second film to our month, Jake, because I mentioned this to Daniel. We did The Big Red One, and I recommended he watch that movie. This movie is similar to that in terms of its kind of, it focuses on the horrific side of war and the way it breaks down a man because of the imagery and the emotions a man goes through during war. And I feel like this character, Fliora, is almost similar to Mark Hamill's character, Griff, in The Big Red One, in terms of how they're both kind of almost, I don't want to say pacifists, but it's like they don't want to kill people in war because they see what it does to a person.
Well, at first they think they do, and then they find out that they don't.
Yeah, they definitely change. They have a good character arc.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that because it's the end of the movie, which, similar to Big Red One, the end of the movie, Mark Hamill's character, fires his weapon and kills a soldier. Which, if you listen to our review on that movie, he doesn't want to kill anyone, and at the end of the movie, based on all the horrific things he's seen, he kills a soldier. So, Daniel, I highly recommend you watch that movie.
Yeah, definitely.
But this movie it's from 1985. I mentioned that earlier. It's number 92 on IMDb Top 250 movies. So it's pretty high up there, and it's pretty highly regarded. It's extremely high rated on, extremely high rated on Letterboxd. So I gave it a 4 or 5 on Letterboxd. I gave it a pretty high rating. I know Daniel said you'd probably do a 5, right?
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Yeah. This is the final film directed by Elim Klimov. He's the director, of course. He intended to make more films, but in 2001 he felt he had creatively taken himself as far as he could go, which I'd be curious to see some of his other movies, because I hear they're also pretty graphic in nature and very documentary-like. This movie is very documentary-like and very realistic. And I can imagine what it took to make this film. It's very interesting, and Daniel and I talked about this. It was very nice to have Daniel with me while watching the movie, because he would explain things from his perspective, and that was really nice. So appreciate you, Daniel. And
I had to sit in the basement by myself and watch this shit.
Yeah, pretty interesting movie to watch by yourself for sure. It's interesting that everyone talks to the camera. It's like when the camera's looking at the character, they're like speaking directly to the audience, which kind of gives it that Talking Heads documentary vibe, where you're not watching a movie. It's real life. So that's very interesting in how Klimov decided to direct it.
Yeah, it's not quite fourth wall breaking, but it's pretty damn close. Like, and it starts immediately. Like, in the first shot, the guy turns directly to the camera and starts yelling about the digging and stuff.
Yeah.
Which was like a little jarring, because I wasn't expecting that at all.
Same. It was almost like I kind of felt this movie was also like Big Red One in terms of the beginning. I thought to myself, I don't know if I'm going to like this because it's different. But then getting through it, you're like, okay, this movie's a masterpiece.
Yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
You're good. It's interesting how the main character Fleora, like, is excited to go to war. You have such a crazy, drastic change from his character in the beginning to his character in the end. You literally physically see that and emotionally see that, which is really, I mean, that's Jake and I always talk about having good character development and good character arcs and stakes, and this movie has that. I mean, I always think a movie is good, especially if the character learns something or goes through a journey. That movies are all about character and the people in the movies, and this movie is no stranger to that for sure. It's very character driven, because obviously we're following Flora throughout this entire escapade of war, and we see his change throughout, and it's intense.
Yeah, and like, this movie's, basically got the highest stakes, possible, which is his life, is on the line. So, yeah, I mean, it's extremely compelling and enthralling, from start to finish. We'll talk about a lot of the like recurring like motifs and themes and stuff that are in this movie, and it's yeah, I mean, it really is just like a masterfully done movie. A little bit more on, I'd say, the art side of film. So it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but having watched, like, I don't know how many movies we're on now. 120 something, or yeah, about 100.
Because I think for 100 we're doing T2.
Yeah, it's coming up. Yeah, in July.
Spoiler
I
alert.
think.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, we've maybe watched like maybe 5 or 6 movies that are like of this like caliber where it's like truly art,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's again like unbelievably like beautiful, but like pretty devastating.
Yeah. I'd almost argue that I mean, obviously it's cinema, so it is art, but I'd almost argue against you, Jake, and say that it's like, it's not art because it's trying to show you the real atrocities of war. That's my take. The very rare time I argue with you. Daniel, what do you think about that? Art versus I guess realisticness of this movie. I don't know how to kind of categorize that, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely. I mean, I guess it took me like a little while to like think about that. Yeah, I mean, I could for sure see that, especially when you look at art being the like a painting by John Martin or by like Thomas Cole or something like that. Like Joshua commanding the sun to stand still, and you say like, oh my God, like this painting looks so good. It's so beautiful. But then when you like apply that same beautiful concept to a movie like this, it's like nowhere to be found. Beauty, or like, I mean, it's all horror basically. Nothing but bloodshed, sadness. It's just really bad. But yeah, I could for sure see how, it's obviously not a very pretty movie. I do think there are some scenes that do look very good. But yeah, not a pretty movie. It's not like a Wes Anderson film or something like that. Very much the opposite. Yeah, I mean, I could for sure see that. Yeah, and I think that was that was definitely the director's like idea when he made the film. And I think Jake, when you talked about like the main character breaking the fourth wall in the movie, I remember the first time I saw it, and I kind of at first felt like a little bit weird, like, hold on, wait, they're not supposed to be doing that. But then like, as you sort of come to expect that going forward in the movie, because I think that was also mentioned in the video essay, but Yeah, I think, like, obviously you're not supposed to be doing that, like in a cinematic sense, but
Yeah.
the way that this movie does it, it actually really works, especially when you look at it from the horror perspective, and you see it as like being creepy. It's not really like, how do you say?
It's
It's
kind of
not goofy. It's
hypnotizing.
not. Yeah, yeah. Hypnotizing. That's the perfect word for it. Yeah. It just feels so like, just you're almost like arrested in their gaze, and you like just want to look away, but then they're just like hyper fixated on the actual camera, and it feels just like you can't get away from it, and you can't really look away because you almost feel like you're like that character is almost looking at you, and like you can't just run away or something like that. It's just like in your face.
Yeah.
And also, I think it serves a pretty good purpose at like, how do you say, sort of like seeing that character's evolution from like who they were at the beginning of the film, and it's almost like that person trying to send that message across, if you will.
Yeah.
How do you say, like, like when Glasha, for example, is looking at Fliora and they're in the woods. I think this is probably right before the bombing, I want to say. This is probably like, maybe 20 minutes of the movie or something like that. And she's looking at Fliora and she's like saying all of these things. And basically, Flora, just like the audience, can't run away, can't like do anything. He just basically has to sit there and hear it. And it's almost like Glasha's like a ghost, if you will, or something like that. Or like I'm not just like the Grim Reaper, but she's sort of like, that conversation. I feel like really lets Fliora know that this is real, that this is war, this is serious. This isn't like playing soldier on the playground or something like that. This is, you're really in the shits. So I think the movie did a really good job at that, but go ahead.
Right, I got a couple things. First, I want to respond to Kevin and defend my position.
Okay.
Shots fired.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of joking, but I mean, real quick, I think
I mean, it is art. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
I totally agree with Daniel's point that like the movie does not look like pretty or beautiful. Like the color palette is very bleak. Most of the sets are either like forest or like destroyed, like battlefields or like kind of dilapidated houses or whatever, But it's funny, after the movie, I was kind of doing a little contemplating and digesting, in the basement by myself. And, Kevin had said that you were going to join us on this episode, and thinking about Once Upon a Time in America. I think one of the things we talked about was how Sergio Leone never like wastes a shot, and like that movie is also slightly over 2.5 hours, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, probably closer to 3 hours.
Yeah.
And like that was a movie where, usually after we watch any movie, I kind of think, about the pacing and things like that, and if there's anything that I would like have edited out or cut down. Once Upon a Time in America, I think I said on that episode, was like, I don't think there's anything that could be cut out of that movie because it's all extremely relevant to either the plot or character development. And Come and See is very similar, where like I sat there and thought, and I was like, I don't think any of this is like able to be edited down. I was like, even scenes that were long, like there's just like no good, like everything provides context, everything provides emotional impact, everything provides character development. So yeah, I think it's just incredibly done, incredibly crafted. That's kind of where my the sense of beauty, I think, comes for me anyway. And then I wanted to talk about the horror aspect of the movie as well. And we're talking about kind of a lot of the shots are from Flora's point of view, looking directly at people, and they're looking directly at you, the viewer, as they talk. It reminds me a lot of some of the shots of Danny in The Shining when he sees ghosts. There's like direct, shots of him looking at the camera. And also there's a few, which we actually didn't talk about this on our episode of The Shining. Kevin and I found this later after the fact, but there's several times in The Shining where Jack Nicholson actually looks at the camera for like half a second. To kind of create a sense of unease in the viewer that like is barely perceptible, but like your brain picks up on it. Come and See does that overtly because like the whole time watching this, all I could think of was like how unsettling the movie was, mainly because of those direct to camera like discussion or conversations, and then seeing Flora's reactions, to things dead on at the camera too. It's just like it's so uncommon and so eerie in like a cinematic setting, where usually you're looking over someone's shoulder or like from the side, watching a conversation happen. Where this film puts you like directly into the conversation. A lot of time it's not a conversation that you would want to be a part of.
Yeah. This movie, like The Shining, was shot almost a ton of it was shot in Steadicam. And Daniel and I mentioned that to each other. I was like, and I looked up the kind of trivia when we were watching it, but I was blown away by a lot of the shots in this movie and how fluid they are and how it's just moving. The camera's moving a lot of the time, unless it's literally focused on a character looking at the camera, which, like you said, makes it uneasy. So this and The Shining have a lot in common, which is kind of interesting in terms of those like aspects. And I even mentioned it to Daniel while we were watching. I was like, do you know what movie this reminds me of? Or like, because of Steadicam, it's The Shining. Do you remember that, Daniel, when I said that?
That's funny.
Yeah, I do. And I was also praising God that basically, thank God that they used Steadicam, because there's so many movies these days that, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on this like very small rant, but many movies
we
these
love
days.
those.
Good. I'll just try to make this one short, but basically, there's a ton of movies right now that like, I guess if you look at the camera, it's kind of just like doing like this basically, and I think
like
it's
hovering a little bit.
Yeah, like hovering or like floating or something. And I think it's like meant to serve that like, oh, this is what it would look like if you're like POV looking at, if you yourself were in the movie. But, obviously when you look at something in real life, it's not like doing this, which of course, yeah, I mean, there's probably like some psychological reason why they do that. I mean, I'm sure it probably does feel more real, but I feel like it really helps with this movie because it feels like you're not like distracted by that, and it feels like you could actually see what's going on and what's happening in real time.
Come and see.
Yeah, yep, just like the name of the movie. Or come and don't, because it's pretty horrific.
Yeah.
If you do, you're probably just going to watch it one time. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I'd probably say like, because they had Steadicam, I don't know. I'd probably say like this is, I don't know. I'm also like thinking they probably didn't have the foresight in the 80s to know that like people aren't going to like this in the future.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's really good. You're not distracted at all. Like when you're watching it, you can pay attention, like focus, and like, I don't know. It almost feels like more immersive that way too. I feel like when it's just steady.
I love
and, like,
Steadicam.
That makes me think, and I want to go like double check this, but I'm not going to do it now. But like, a lot of the fluid camera motion and stuff is like following characters around and moving through the setting. But thinking about it now, I think every single one of those like POV shots is dead still, which is also adds that like creepy element to it when the rest of the movie is so fluid. but those shots are like almost frozen, which is a really cool like juxtaposition, if I'm correct.
I think you are. I think so too. It's interesting because it's like there's all this action. The action is always moving, but then when one character wants to say something, or there's something like very important that comes on screen that needs to be like sent across to the viewer, it's like a stagnant shot, which is very interesting. See, this is Daniel. This is why we like this podcast. This is why Jake and I have fun with this, because we talk about the movie after, and we realize more things about it, and it's fun. And yeah, so thanks for coming on the show, Daniel.
Yeah,
of course, definitely.
I mean, again, adding to the realistic nature of this movie, the sequence that really kind of throws you right into the action is the bombing, and you kind of mentioned it a little earlier, Daniel, is the like where Fliora and Glosh are at. There's just bombs that are getting dropped, and it's like it feels so real. And what I like about this is you feel that everyone is expendable, including the main character. Like, you think he could die at any moment, and there's so many like instances that he escapes death, and that is very rare to find in cinema these days, is that uneasiness and suspense that your main character is not going to make it through the film, and only a select few movies do that extremely well, in my opinion. Like, I could probably, of recent times, I can only name this and Civil War. And we saw that together, Daniel. And I mentioned that to you after we saw it. I was like, that was the one thing I loved about that movie, is I felt like at any moment these characters could die. And like, even though they were main characters, they had in an instant they could be dead. And that just raises the stakes. And again, Jake and I talk about this all the time on our podcast, is we want heavy stakes, because it brings the viewer in, it sucks you in, and it invests you in the story, and it grounds the characters and makes it real as fuck. And I love that. That is so hard to find in cinema, especially these days. So having this movie have that is awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
To build on that a little bit, like the effects are like spot on. Like the shells or the bombs exploding aren't like giant fireballs, Hollywood, like bullshit. It's like dirt's like getting blown into the air, and like in the forest there's like machine gun fire, and like trees are exploding, and stuff like from the bullets, and like it definitely adds that sense of like danger and like realism that like really makes you immersed, I think, in the movie. It makes you really actually worry for the main character, which is, like you said, not a common filmmaking technique anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the POV shot of Fliora's ears ringing from the bomb is insane, and just the lapse of time that transpires with the ringing in his ears is pretty crazy. And Daniel and I talked about this during our screening. Live ammunition was used during filming. In interviews, the main character, Fliora, or Alexei Kravchenko, had described bullets passing just 10 centimeters above his head. So they used real rounds of ammunition to freak the main character out, which is stupid in my opinion, because it's dangerous as shit, especially 10 centimeters above someone's head. That's crazy. Thankfully, this guy's still alive, or in the movie, post making the movie. But
that's Russia, baby.
Yeah.
There's, like you said, trees exploding. Like, that's real. Those are real rounds that are hitting these trees.
Yeah.
And then you get them when Fliora and his uncle, they say Uncle Rubezev, they steal the cow, and then there's just this MG42 nest that's just firing at him and shoots the cow, which that's real, which is fucked up. That cow really gets shot and dies.
Again, only in Russia.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah, let's not forget about the bird nest that they stepped on too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's real. And I feel like the bird's nest. There's a lot of symbolic imagery in this movie, and I know Jake, you mentioned that. Let's get into that a little bit. I think Fliora stepping on the bird's nest is a symbol. Symbolizes his innocence is gone. Like he crushes these birds that haven't even hatched yet. He's not even a man yet, and he's about to experience all these things in death. And that's, in my opinion, what it symbolizes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's like this stamping out, of like his childhood kind of. And like, because that happens as he's like running because he's upset that he didn't get called to the front line, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, he doesn't even understand like what's coming, So yeah, I think that's like really good foreshadowing of all of the horror that's gonna come.
Yeah, it's being naive, young and naive. It's like you are in war and you step on this bird's nest and kill these birds, these baby birds, and you're crying. It's like that's not even scratching the surface when it comes to war.
Yeah.
No.
So, yeah. Daniel, what do you think of that cow scene?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up again because I wanted to kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw that scene, and yeah, basically, kind of like you said, Uncle Rubazev, or whatever. I can't really pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try to. But yeah, when him and Fliora are out in the field after they rob the farmer for his cow. Also, there's some symbolatry there too, Kevin. The whole, oh, you look like a cow. You should you should wear on some camouflage or something like that. And then you see in a later scene that cow gets smoked. And I mean, I'm not saying the cow should have been wearing camouflage, obviously, right? Because it was caught in a war zone, but
It's turned into a burger.
yeah, literally. Yeah, no, I remember the first time I saw that, and I was just like, I mean, sure they had some CGI in the 80s, but I'm like, I don't think that was CGI at all.
Yeah.
I was like, that looked pretty real to me. And I told you, Kevin, also on Sunday, I was like, also, I know that they definitely didn't have anyone, like, in a cow costume, if you will.
Yeah.
And even if they did, obviously just using, like, live ammunition, which is also crazy. Anyway, but yeah, like, you see the cow get smoked, and I also pointed out, Kevin, like, there's another shot, too, like, when the cow's eye basically starts going like this. It's basically the animal, like, knowing that it's dying, which is, like, really freaky.
Terrifying.
Yeah, and, I mean, I also think I joked to you that, like, I hope they only did one take for that they didn't, like, try,
several cows.
Yeah, they, like, like 12 cows or whatever it is for, until they get it right. Like, also,
This cow's eye didn't twitch. Send in the next one.
Yeah, send in the next one. Let's do it over.
It felt funny.
Yeah. Oh, it felt funny. Oh, like it didn't scream enough or whatever it is.
Jeez.
Yeah. Anyway, but
Poor cow.
yeah, poor cow. Yeah. And then also, like, imagine being the actor who played Fliora, and then it's like, oh my god, we have to do this again. We're going to be shooting a machine gun over my head, 12 times in a row.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, whatever. Yeah. That being said, though, also after that scene when Fliora has to, like, he takes like a knife or a bayonet or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, attempts to stab the cow to presumably get meat from it, so he could take it back to the village, or at least the refugees that he was with. Also, again, knowing that it's a dead cow, pretty freaky, pretty gross. And then also to your point, Jake, about the whole, like, the bombs falling and it looking so realistic. Yeah, it looks so real. Something that you don't really see in modern movies. And, like, obviously they're probably they could be using surplus, Russian munitions or something like that. Very possible back then. Anyway, but that was really cool. I loved seeing the dirt shoot up, like, 60 meters or whatever it is in the air. I loved also I don't know if it was like shrapnel. I mean, I don't think it was machine gun fire or anything like that, but, you saw holes coming through the trees, and you see like trees actually split. You know, again, no CGI. It looks so real, and also, Kevin, I think too, like, I think I also mentioned that there are so many shots too in the movie that look literally like it's a documentary of actual World War II footage, like if the movie itself was made solely from World War II footage. That's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah,
and that adds to the horror aspect of it, the creepiness of it, where it's like, this is real life. This is what happened, which is crazy, and it just feels accurate, which is also scary because of what atrocities happened. You know.
Yeah. But yeah, so I wanted to talk, you know, about, there's what, three or four animals in the movie, you know, that are pretty prominently featured. So the one that like really, like, I felt like there was something behind it was the like stork or the crane, in the forest right after the bombing and the paratroopers come to the camp. So like I just Googled like what's with the bird and come and see. And I found this Reddit article that was pretty good, kind of breaking down how the movie uses animals to kind of foreshadow some sort of horrible event that's coming. And, you know, I'm not like a bird expert, so I thought that the bird was a stork, and it actually is. Obviously in like the US and like Western Europe, storks are like the bird that bring babies, you know, in like, you know, whatever you want, like fairy tales or, you know, whatever. That's not what they are in Eastern Europe. Which,
interesting.
You know, I was kind of thinking about it. Like, I wonder if this is some sort of like, you know, cause like the scene preceding that was Glasha saying that she wants to like have kids and things like that. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to throw in there. But so one of the commenters on Reddit actually said that in Poland, which is right next to Belarus, a nesting stork is a symbol of good luck, or like, you know, kind of foreshadows, you know, some sort of like good, like prosperity or something like that. But in the movie, like a walking stork is an omen of like death or destruction or like something terrible coming, which the movie follows that stork walking for like at least a couple minutes, kind of like wandering through the forest. So that was super interesting, and I'm glad I read it because it adds something, you know, particularly meaningful, that otherwise I don't think we would have understood.
No, definitely not.
So yeah, and you know, the bird kind of leads Flora like through his village, like to that well, and like kind of helps build this sense that like his family's dead. There's like that ominous shot of him looking down the well, and you're almost expecting to see his like family like floating down there or something, you know. And like the realization, you know, is slowly, you know, coming to him, you know, as he's trying to like fight it off, you know, that they're not really dead. So there's that. There's the cow, obviously, you know, which the cow is super interesting because it's like this big, you know, get for them. You know, like they're going to go like take this back and like everybody's going to be able to eat. Then it, you know, gets massacred by the machine gun, also killing Uncle
Rubizeh.
Yeah. You know, which is like devastating for Flora. And he, you know, he tries to move the cow himself and like drag it back, presumably, and, you know, can't. So that, you know, that's a pretty rough outcome for him again. And then the final animal is that little like thing that's on the SS commander's shoulder.
Little monkey thing.
Yeah, which again, like I knew that's not like a European animal, so I think it's from like Africa or maybe even like Australia or something. But
it's like a marsupial or something like that. I have no idea.
It's supposed to show that like just like the German soldiers are like foreign in this in Belarus, and it's something to like signal to the audience that like these are like exotic and like shouldn't be there. Like obviously the Nazis were not supposed to be in Belarus because they're invading. So yeah, I thought those were super interesting, and obviously that animal foreshadows the destruction of that village.
I found out what it is. It's a red slender loris, a species similar to a lemur.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Pretty interesting.
Which if it is from Africa, then maybe that guy. I mean, there were Nazis in Africa too, so maybe he got it there. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean,
Sri Lanka is where they're found.
Oh.
They're found in Sri Lanka.
As far as I know, there were not Nazis in Sri Lanka, so.
Yeah, it could have been like a symbol of wealth or something like that, or some status symbol animal or something.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, like the use of animals is super interesting. And the other symbol that's prominent throughout the movie is the German surveillance plane. That's shown like I think 4 times throughout the movie. Always kind of watching Flora, which is really cool, and also eerie because, again, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the exact same clip of the plane flying that's used every single time, which adds like a little bit of like creepiness because it's like it never ever left, and it's like been watching him the entire time,
That could symbolize that he hasn't, like, there's nowhere to go. Like, this war isn't going to make anything better, in a sense. Like, he can't get out of it. There's no hill to climb.
Yeah, he can't hide at this point,
Yeah. Pretty interesting. I mean, when Fliora goes back to his village and is like looking for his family, you kind of mentioned it. He's like in denial and like struggles going through this like bog or like marsh, and him and Glasha like are struggling, and even Daniel mentioned he's like, this goes on for quite a while of them just struggling, and it's his denial that his parents or his family isn't dead, and it's creepy, like the symbol of the dolls laid out on the floor with the flies hovering around them. Daniel, you mentioned a good point about that. You want to talk about that?
Oh yeah, sure. Basically. Yeah, pretty much Fliora comes home and he goes to his house. He doesn't find his family there. He basically just sees a bunch of dolls and things like that. Sort of a line on the floor, but I guess looking back on it, I don't really remember him, like, maybe he did. Maybe I'm just misremembering something, but I don't think he consciously looked at them, did he? Or maybe he might have, like, glanced at them or something like that.
I don't know. The camera looks at him. Maybe it's from his POV, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, possible. Yeah, and like, I don't know, when he comes back home, it's sort of like, he's just, like you were saying, rationalizing that, oh, my family is fine, they're just not here or something like that. They're just gone. And then I guess this idea is sort of reinforced by when he goes into the oven or something, or maybe not an oven, but some kiln or something like that. He finds hot soup, and he's like, oh, see, I mean, the soup is hot, my mom just made it, here, have some Glasha. And then I can't exactly remember what motivates him to go outside, but basically they do. I think maybe Fleora gets like freaked out or something like that. Maybe he also ignored all the flies flying around, the food and stuff, which probably wouldn't be around if his family was around. But yeah, basically they leave. He forgets his rifle, comes back in, gets it, and then as they're leaving, Glasha looks behind her and sees like 30 bodies piled up that have just been freshly shot right outside of his house. And I remember the first time seeing that scene, and oh boy, is it nightmarish. It looks as if you could have just taken some of these shots from the movie and said, yeah, this is actual World War II footage, and that's what it actually feels like. And yeah, Kevin, to your point, on Sunday, I basically said that I think the reason why those dolls were aligned on the floor like that is because the German soldiers wanted to let Fleora know that this is basically what happened to your family. And I don't know, I kind of thought about this more, and I was just like, wait, how would they know that Fleora, for one, even existed, and two, that he would even come home? And they're probably, I'm guessing the German soldiers probably did that on the off chance of presuming that he does survive, this bombing campaign and then actually makes it home. They probably wanted him to see that to let him know exactly what happened. Almost like they're taunting or like mocking him in some way, in a really sick way. And I don't know, I think they probably did that because they're like, whether he does or he doesn't, let's assume that he does and he sees it. It's like, it's adding that extra layer of complexity or like another dimension into the wickedness and the sickness of the German military back then.
Yeah, I think it's also, and just kind of hearing you say that, it made me think of, it symbolizes again kind of that loss of innocence. It's your childhood is spoiled. It's rotten now. There's no going back to it, and I think that's kind of what it also symbolizes.
Yeah, it's also just like an eerie image, Yeah. And like what otherwise, is like the house is, not quite in shambles, but it's definitely not like clean and tidy because there's flies everywhere. Yeah. There's a candle that's like lit in the window that I think Glasha like turns and looks at like weirdly, and like the soup is, still in the oven or the, warming or whatever. So yeah, it's like just like another like weird circumstance, in this like not quite right setting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, again, kind of that horror aspect of it and that loss of innocence and having those two relate to each other. I think a lot of the characters warn Fleora about his future, his potential future. His mom says, if you leave us, we're dead, basically. Yeah. And that's exactly what happens. All these people tell him, all these people older than him and adults tell this child, Fleora, what's going to happen if he does these certain things, which is what adults do. They tell children, no, don't do this. If you do this, if you touch the hot stove, you're going to burn yourself. And that's exactly what happens with Fleora. Mm-hmm. And one of the village guys, the guy who tells him don't dig for the gun in the beginning. And then he shows up later and he's all burned and he's like dying, and he tells Fleora, like, what did I tell you? Like, you shouldn't dig. Like, look what's happening to everyone. There's a lot of warning that he doesn't heed. Right.
The one thing that Daniel noted that is really interesting is that he does, he's obviously very concerned about finding his family, but he stops and goes back to get his gun. Which is a really like telling like moment. And that continues to be a theme, is after like every event that he's subjected to, he always ends up going back and getting his gun. Which is, again, like part of his arc, where like he wants to be, you know, the fighter and the soldier.
Like he's playing soldier.
Yeah, he's not, you know, he's being subjected to all these, you know, terrible events, but still keeps clinging to, you know, the symbol of violence, which is pretty interesting and pretty powerful.
Yeah. It's fucking depressing.
Thing is, he even does it after the escaping the village, you know, that's being massacred. He wanders back into the farm to find his gun that he buried in the hay, you know, and his uniform, which, like, if it was me after that, I'd be like, fuck that shit, you know? Like, I don't want anything to do with this. But, you know, like, it's almost like, yeah, I think one of you guys said it's like hypnotic, you know, like he doesn't know what else to do, so he just goes back to the gun.
It's the one thing that could potentially keep him safe that he runs back to. But it's also the reason why these terrible events are happening.
Yeah.
Pretty ironic. Yeah, were you going to say something, Daniel?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, like, it's kind of like, be careful what you ask for, basically.
Yeah.
You know, it very much seems like that, yeah.
Yeah, you want to be this big-time soldier? Are you sure about that? At least for this instance.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the worst scene of the movie, and that's the barn scene.
Yeah, let's make this quick.
Oh, yeah.
All the innocent...
Like the church scene where they put all the, you know, villagers in or whatever.
Yeah, and then throw grenades in there. Like,
yep.
That part, like, that was really depressing. Like, it just, again, it felt so real. It's not some crazy big explosion, and then they set it on fire, and then they light it up with just guns. They just fire on it, and they're laughing and hysterical and crazed about what they did, which is just not human-like.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Daniel, you said, sorry, Jake. Daniel, you said, like, these guys are barbarians. Like, they're just not human, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I won't really go on this like too long, but yeah, it's, you know, I mean, I'd probably say it's, I mean, obviously the scene itself should be evidence enough for you to, you know, see that these people are barbarians, but, you know, I'd say the two parts in that scene that were probably the worst were, one, when the, I think, SS officers, like, you know, we'll let you live, you know, we'll let you, like, leave the church, or, you know, basically, we'll let you escape slaughter if you leave the children behind, which, like, carries so much evil inside of it. It's like, you know, for one, you're also, like, you're offering a chance to, like, save someone's life, but they're going to have to, like, murder their kid in order to do that. That was pretty fucking disgusting, for one. And then also the scene where I think, like, someone either tries to get their child out to, like, save it, and then one of the German, like, soldiers, whatever it is, like, grabs the child and then just, like, throws it back in there like it's, you know, like, not a football. You know what I mean? It's, like, just throwing it back in there. And
yeah,
it's, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, throwing a baby into, like, a burning building that you're going to, you know, throw hand grenades, shoot machine guns into, and obviously you'll light on fire with flame throwers. Pretty bad. And I don't know. I mean, that seems pretty horrific, but going back to, like, your point, Kevin, about, you know, how it's, like, it's barbaric. What I like that this movie did so well is that it gave the most accurate depiction of how German soldiers actually were during World War II. You know, I mean, no shade of, like, Saving Private Ryan or anything like that, or any other World War II movie featuring German soldiers or Band of Brothers or something. But you don't see them as, like, being just the archetypal bad guys. You see them as being, like, you know, these people might as well be fucking demons, pretty much, like actual demons. And, you know, you could, I mean, not like you could tell, but they looked like they were hopped up on meth, like the German soldiers were during World War II. They clearly had no human qualities, if you will, or anything like that to them. They were just like, I'm not going to say like living in the moment or anything like that, but it's like they just, it seemed like either they had no conscience or they just, either no conscience, they weren't thinking, or they were evil, or maybe all three. Likely the latter. And there's nothing glamorous, like Hollywood glamour or anything like that with what they're doing. And you look for, you're just repulsed every single time you see them. Like, they're just disgusting. And you don't, it's not, like there's, I know this is probably an easy point to argue, that there's no redeeming quality about, German soldiers during World War II. But, this movie does what I feel like other World War II movies that feature the German military don't really do as well, is by showing the actual realism of how fucking sick and twisted those people were when they were doing all that. But, anyway.
Yeah, the thing I was going to say about that, to kind of add on, is that like almost all of the, I guess, like the infantry soldiers are like piss drunk, like they're like all fucking hammered, and like it's an interesting choice because it takes it from being like, they're given orders, they're executing orders, so like they're doing this for fun, which is like the really like sick and twisted part. And I think it's also kind of conveyed through, we already talked about the little like lemur thing, as like this like status symbol, and like, like they're not expecting a fight, which is like another element of like how twisted it is. 'Cause like they just plow through this village like it's nothing, and like, and the entire sequence is more or less in real time, and it's maybe 15 minutes, like that everyone in the village is dead, basically. So it's really fast, really brutal, and expedient. The one thing that like really kind of like popped out to me is there's like a female officer that's sitting in a car eating lobster. And like, I had to Google it to make sure, but Belarus is a landlocked country. So to get that, they had to have imported it. So like, it's like an element of like luxury that she's enjoying during this like absolutely like disgusting, display, which adds like, again, another element of like how fucked up like these people are, like she's like eating this lobster that probably had to be like flown in or like brought to them like that day, to eat. Or like at that point it's going to go bad if it's not, fresh. So yeah, it's just like a really weird thing to be doing, and like is another like status symbol, and like shows, how like, the Russians, and in this case the Belarusians, are like not prepared like to fight them in like any way.
Yeah, it's well documented that German soldiers, like, it's true. This isn't made up. It's true that German soldiers would often lock people in barns and kill them, and like just destroy like villages of people. It's true. That's true. That's not fiction.
At the end of this scene, they tell you it's 162 villages in Belarus that were completely destroyed, and everyone was murdered, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
It's like in the 160s for sure.
Which, I mean,
it's like
Belarus is
maybe.
not a very big country, so that's a lot, and a lot of people, to get wiped out.
We are way off. 628 Belarusian villages together.
I had the numbers flipped, so yeah, that's even worse.
Yeah, it's like almost every village in Belarus,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
If not, actually might be. Yeah.
Literally, it says, yeah, the epilogue states the Nazis burned down 628 Belarusian villages together with all the people in them. All the people.
Yeah.
Fucking wild. Jeez. Pretty crazy. Yeah, and that's like during that whole sequence of events in the movie, that's when I literally turned to Daniel and I was like, this is like literal actual footage from World War II. Like, this feels like a documentary. This feels like there's a cameraman there filming all that. And the Steadicam helps with that. In a sense, doesn't help. But it, yeah, that's crazy. And then, like, and that's the point of, like, I don't want to say like no return, but the point of no return for Fliora and Glasha at that point, where it's like they have seen it all. You've got Fliora that literally has a gun held to his head and is about to get executed, but they take a picture just for fun to fuck with the kid. Mm-hmm. And like that's evil in and of itself. And just the wear and weather on his face and like the crust and like wrinkles in his face and his hair going white instead of blonde and him getting his hair cut in general is just another symbolic like scene of him losing his childhood and his humanity. It's just crazy. And then you see Glasha at the end, which I didn't even know that was her. Like, I was like, how is that Glasha? Like, she's the one being tossed around in this truck full of soldiers.
It's not actually her, is what I read.
Really?
Yeah. So the girl that gets dragged out of the barn right after Flora is her. And the scene where Flora's looking at her as she's like walking with the whistle, it flashes as Glasha for one like POV shot. And then that's when he says those couple lines about like you wanted to bear children or whatever it was. But yeah, I had to read it.
Interesting.
But it was not actually Glasha. So presumably she's with those survivors, somewhere still.
Yeah, nonetheless, she's still looking rough.
Yeah.
Not that that's funny, but it's just they're both not looking good at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the like physical aging of Flora is like a pretty masterful technique. And at no point is it like particularly like jarring that change is happening either, which is pretty incredible. Until you get like those final shots at the end where he's like looking into the camera again, and you're like, oh my god, he looks like he's like 60. Which is, yeah, I mean, the makeup is really, really good. His acting is like
incredible.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know. The way they like captured like complete terror on his face is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Daniel, you were going to say something?
Oh yeah, no, I was going to say like, I don't know, like, I guess, I don't know, I always thought for the longest time that the girl that you do see at the end was Glasha, but yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense that it wasn't, because I'm just trying to remember that, like, oh yeah, I think I do remember seeing like a girl being taken away out of the church and then like put to the side, and I think it was the translator, the Belarusian guy that says, oh yeah, I can speak German. It was like him, that one girl, and then the Flora that I remember, being on the side. Mm-hmm. But I could have swore like I heard screaming or something like that really sounded like it was Glasha, when basically this girl is in the truck, or a truck basically, and there's like 50 German soldiers basically trying to climb her onto the truck or already in the truck or something like that. And I don't know, like I always thought like, okay, if it was Glasha, then it'd almost be like so symbolic, or so like not symbolic, but I don't know, it'd almost be like so tragic. It'd be like an actual tragedy where it's like, you saw those two characters at the beginning of the movie, And then now you see this mirror image of who they are and the experiences that they both had together. Almost like they're both completely so far gone that, basically their whole lives or the interactions, all the time they spent together might as well have not even happened because those people aren't there anymore. And, basically it's almost like they like they're just not in it anymore, I guess, if you know what I mean. Like they're just not, like it wouldn't surprise me if they both didn't even see each other, even though they were like, 3 feet away from each other or something like that. Like, not like they were looking past, but like they just weren't mentally there.
Yeah.
And that's like what war does to people. And,
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, a lot of the soldiers get what's coming to them in the end and they get killed, but it's like you don't feel good about it either. I feel like it's like they get killed, it's like sure, but you don't feel like, I don't know, it's just there's so much negativity and just like death in the movie that you're just like, I don't want to see anymore.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's almost like, I don't know, kind of like what you were saying, like you see so much death in the movie that it's like you just see them as like more dead bodies, basically. And
yeah,
you know that they're like German soldiers, that they're dead and whatnot, and all the bad shit they did. So I mean, obviously, it's like you said, they kind of had it coming to them.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's a very interesting point. It basically, you kind of just don't really want to see anymore after that scene.
Yeah, it's like great, the villains of the movie, if you will, die, but you're just like, I don't know if I felt satisfied per se. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and I think it's meant to be unsatisfactory. You know, because we kind of talked about this. I think in Big Red 1, where like there's like there is no like happy ending, achievable. So like it's kind of just another happening, in the movie. Like there is no like nice bow, tied up and everybody's kind of like, yay, we won,
Yeah. I literally was just Googling it, like, what's the saying when there's like no victor in war? And it's literally, there are no winners in war. Like no one's a winner. And that's kind of I feel like that's the point it's trying to drive at the end. It's like, even though there's a clear winner at the end or good versus evil, both parties have suffered, atrocities and loss, and there's no real winner or victor at the end. But the ending of the movie is very interesting, with Fliora finding a propaganda poster of Hitler, and it kind of shows a lot of the like events around Hitler, and it goes in reverse order, which is crazy. And it all kind of rewinds to him finally pulling the trigger and shooting the poster of Hitler. And then it shows baby Hitler. And it's like, I turned to Daniel during this and I was like, this is like symbolizing like, what if Hitler never existed? None of this would have happened, which is crazy. And it also gives you that moral question of, if you have the opportunity to kill baby Hitler, do you do it?
Yeah, and it's interesting that Flora stops short there and walks away.
Yeah, it's like what's the breaking point for that? When is, even if they're a bad person, do you still commit murder? Do you still commit an atrocity? It's very interesting, and it brings up a very ethical dilemma and moral question that feels like a real question you'd ask yourself, especially in wartime. Like, and again, that's how I relate it to the Big Red 1, the movie we just watched. Is murder, kill, what's the difference? It's you're in war, murder, kill, you're killing, you're murdering, it's the same thing. So
yeah,
when you're facing a loaded gun, what's the difference?
Yeah. You had mentioned Mark Hamill's character arc in the Big Red 1, how he and Flora kind of parallel each other. And in the Big Red One, Hamill ends up killing the soldier, after all of his experiences. I think it's interesting that Flora does not kill anybody in the movie, and ultimately chooses to walk away, when he presents himself, with this like symbolic, murder of Hitler. It's a pretty interesting decision, even after all that he's been through, that he chooses pacifism, in the end.
Yet he still joins back with the soldiers in the end, which is crazy because it's like him going through all that. Do you just sit by the side, sit on the sidelines and let this happen, or do you join and fight? And that's another moral question that this movie asks, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you? I want to. I want to ask. Do you kill baby Hitler if you can?
Oh, I mean, it is a pretty interesting moral question, but, again, knowing how many millions, tens of millions of people that baby will be responsible for killing, I think I said, Kevin, that, we're talking about, like, actual Satan here. I don't know. I think if you obviously had the foreknowledge... Huh? Yeah.
For people who are just listening, I have a pillow, and I'm imitating suffocating someone. Sorry, go on, Daniel.
No, you're good. But yeah, again, if you had the foreknowledge of what that baby would do, like imagine if you like took all the film footage or something like that, and you went back in time to whenever the fuck he was born, and you showed someone this and you said, hey, this is what this baby's going to become. This baby is actually Satan. Then,
That's a yes, Daniel.
Again, dude, we're talking about like actual Satan here. It's not like it's just some innocent baby. Or, you know what I mean? If with the foreknowledge,
Yeah, with the foreknowledge, I don't know. It's hard to answer that question, but I might say yes. I don't know. Just that's such a moral question. It's like there's such a gray area with that, and it's like you can't change the past, in my opinion. You can only affect your future. So it's like I think going back in time, like that's such a dumb question if you ask me, but it's like hopefully we can learn from past mistakes. Obviously we can't go and kill babies thinking that they're going to be,
yeah,
the ender, the death of society or millions of people. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
I was going
Jay?
to say, I don't think I personally could, but I wouldn't stop Daniel.
There we go. All right. I think we're in agreement there. Yeah. Tough question. I know that's a lot to ask, and obviously none of us want to kill anyone. So, I think that's a great place to end the episode. You guys have anything else you want to add before closing remarks?
I'm very happy that we watched this.
Me too.
Happy is not the right word. I'm very, I don't know. I was trying to think of like how I feel after watching this, and like the best comparison I could come up with is like having my wisdom teeth taken out. like,
Yep.
Had I had the option, I would have preferred to not have gone through this experience, maybe, but having gone through it, and I'm like, I feel like I'm better off.
You're on the other side now.
On the other side, so I'm not upset that I watched it. I'm not like super happy I watched it, but like from a like pure like content perspective, like it's a masterwork for sure. So I am glad that we watched it, at least in that context.
Yeah. I almost relate this movie to Schindler's List. Like Schindler's List is a fucking masterpiece and one of the best pieces of cinema ever made, in my opinion. And
Never
Daniel
seen
and
it.
I actually. What? Damn!
Yeah, I don't know.
Gotta watch it.
I don't know why. I just
Gotta
never
watch
saw it.
It's one of those. It's like this movie where it's like so brutal to watch, but it's just so masterfully done. It's incredible. Daniel and I actually watched it a few months ago together. Believe it or not.
Yeah. It was my first time watching it too.
Pretty
Back
crazy. It's one of the best movies ever made. Period. And it's a hard watch, and so is this movie. And you know, after each movie we watch, I kind of talk about rewatch value. Daniel thinks this has a lot of rewatch value since he's seen it 3 fucking times. But I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. But I told this to Daniel too. I was like, this is a movie you show someone if they've never seen it, and that's
For
like
sure.
Schindler's List, and that's why I showed you Schindler's List, Daniel. It's a masterpiece of film and cinema and art. I will give you some props there, Jake. It's got some art to it. It's a great movie, but it is depressing as all hell. I am absolutely glad we watched it, and I'm glad we had it on our list. I'm glad it's an 80s movie, and the rewatch value is not 100% there for me, but I could see myself maybe watching it in the future, way down the road. Daniel, you have anything else you want to add before we close up?
Yeah, I guess 3 things. I mean, the first one I'll just make really quick. This actually might be 4 now that I'm thinking about it, but yeah, I mean, I honestly think in terms of how brutal of a movie, especially it being war adjacent or being, you know, a war movie, yeah, really Schindler's List is the only thing that I can think of that even gets close to how fucking brutal and horrific and disgusting it. I mean, you know, just how like awful the actual content you're watching actually is. And you know, I mean, outside of like the only other thing I could think of, going back to like rewatchability, that this is definitely a movie that you want to show people, not necessarily just rewatch again, like, oh, you know what, I'm bored or whatever it is. Let me just throw on Come and See or whatever it is. You're not going to do that at all.
Sunday morning, you got 3 hours to kill. You know?
Yeah.
You know, throw on Come and See. Yeah, I remember the first time watching it myself. Like, I think I probably like. It's one of the movies that you watch that after you're done watching it, you just kind of sit there in silence. You're just like, and it's sort of like lingering almost in the back of your head, like you're just like so horrified by what you saw. Kind of like Martyrs, for example, the 2008 French film Martyrs.
I've not seen it, and Daniel keeps asking me to watch it, and based on what he said, I don't know if I do.
It's I almost want to say it's like the best horror movie ever made, but it's probably one of the worst. It's the type of movie that really should have never seen the light of day. Like, they should track down every copy of this movie and destroy it. Like, it's that horrifying. You know, I'd say Come and See gets, you know, pretty close, but I mean, this is, I don't have to get into that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, there's that. I think also, like, this is for sure a movie that you want to show people. I think I'll also kind of go into your point, Kevin, about like how this movie, you know, looks so much like war footage, basically. Again, I'm really glad they didn't use CGI or anything like that. But like when the Germans are burning the village down, you see, you know, obviously like flame, you know, shoot on all the buildings, and you see like black smoke sort of like billow over the whole landscape, and like it almost obscures the vision, or not the vision, but obscures the shot so much that it feels that immersive, sort of, you know, like, you know, it basically looks like you see this inferno, and then you see like this like dark figure with a flamethrower, you know, obviously lighting the village on fire, and you see the black smoke, and it's almost like it's something that you could almost in a weird way feel the like black smoke or whatever it is, like around you, or like going up in your nostrils or something like that. Visually, I think it's a very good movie. also, Jake, to your point about the whole the female officer, basically eating the lobster and stuff like that. I almost think, and I think I mentioned this to Kevin on Sunday, like, it's almost like, I'm not going to say that they were using her specifically in this movie as like a propaganda tool, if you will, but perhaps maybe during World War II, the German government or something like that might have used that type of imagery to entice young men or whatever it is to join the war, the military, and then fight.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if she was meant as a placeholder for that, sort of like to, as like a propaganda tool, if you will, and like, obviously a very attractive woman, and then she's eating this, food that is basically luxury, especially during wartime, especially in, like you said, landlocked Belarus. I don't know, it kind of seemed like that to me, like a little bit, but
at a minimum, something that again doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you would never see that. I mean, rations or whatever it is, yeah, for sure. I don't know. And then I felt pretty good about the ending when, the Germans who did survive, the SS officer, and then the whoever the other guy was that said, "Leave if you leave your kids, you can," that guy. I did feel pretty satisfied at their deaths because it was like, okay, yeah, they definitely deserve that shit, and don't act like you're some innocent grandpa or whatever it is that, he wouldn't hurt a fly, this and that, anything to save their life, basically. And it's like, come on, dude, you're only saying this because you got caught and because, this is basically Nuremberg trials, but not, you know what I mean, like just in the field. Anyway, so pretty satisfied over their deaths. I don't know. I'd probably say last thing, closing. I think what I said earlier, how I give this movie like a 5 stars on Letterboxd, as you know, Kevin, how much I dislike the whole like 5-star thing on Letterboxd.
I mean, same.
Point system, but anyway, I'd probably give it 5 stars on Letterboxd. Wouldn't get a heart, I don't think, because the content you're actually watching is just
I didn't give it a heart.
Yeah.
give it the heart. Come on.
I'd probably give 5 stars on Letterboxd. I think objective score, I think this movie's probably like, maybe this might be subjective, but I think it's probably like a pretty solid 9 out of 10. That's just me, though. It's just my opinion, so take that for how you will.
Yeah,
awesome.
As a piece of cinema, like, it's hard to argue that it's not, like a stunning example of what film is capable of.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, if you guys want to watch a depressing movie, check that out. It's we talked about it for quite a while, so obviously we enjoyed it for what it is, and there's a lot to dissect with it. So watch it again if you dare, or watch it for the first time and then listen to this podcast. Hopefully you did, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us on this. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. I'm sure we'll have you again. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next week with another depressing war movie.
Yeah. See ya.